What's going on? This is Relaxing Jackson, and we are back to talk about two cards actually in this video. Two things have happened, two things have passed since the last time I recorded this. We had UFC 271 where Israel Adesanya, but first we were going to hit on Jamel Hill versus Johnny Walker. That just happened this past weekend. Shout out to them. We're going to do fight cards a little differently when they're only fight nights and not pay-per-views. Pretty much, I'm only gonna shed some light on a few fights, maybe not all the fights, depending on how the fight night goes, but for the most part, on this card in particular, I wanted to give attention to a few fights. Okay, so first off, shouts out to Stephanie Egger and shouts out to Kyle Dawkins. They both had good performances, both had first round finishes, submissions. They looked to really work their opponents in the first round. They weren't really wasting any time in there. Stephanie Egger actually really looked good on the ground. She kept on chasing submissions until she essentially got it. Kyle Dawkins, on the other hand, he was talking shit to, I can't remember his name at the moment, but he got a good finish. Shouts out to both of them. I would unofficially give them both like a 4. Shouts out to David Onama. Like, pretty much, if you haven't seen that, wow, like he really was hitting this guy. I think Dominic Cruz said he hit him with about a 13-piece combo or something like that. It was kind of ridiculous, and he was down on the ground for a while after he actually got knocked out, but luckily he got up. I'm gonna give it about a 5 because it's so dramatic, but I want to take a point off because in his post-fight interview, he just left a whole bunch of spit on his mouth, and it was really disgusting, and I hated seeing that shit. So whatever. But in the main event, Jamel Hill knocked out Johnny Walker in a way that I've never seen anyone knocked out in my life. Like, holy shit, he hit him, and they're making all types of memes about him and shit, and I'm not going to get into it too much, but pretty much I was like, whoa, like, holy shit, he knocked him out. So obviously that's a 5. You got to go and check those out. Definitely check out the whole card, but I would say those are pretty much my favorite fights from that card. All right, so for the first fight on UFC 271, we had Bobby Green versus Nasrat. I can't pronounce his last name, unfortunately. That fight was actually pretty entertaining to me. I thought Bobby Green had a pretty good fight in there, you know, showed his stand up. Didn't really get taken down. It seemed like Nasrat was really trying to get him down at certain points in time in the fight, but for the most part, he controlled the fight. I think I'm gonna give the fight a 4, just because, like, for me, I personally like it when people put on dominant performances. Now, not every dominant performance is necessarily my favorite, but Bobby Green's style is enjoyable to me, and I think that, you know, it's cool and people would enjoy actually watching the fight. All right, so for the next fight, we had Alexander Hernandez versus Renato Moicano. Personally, to me, I thought this fight was relatively boring. Like, and no offense to either of these fighters, but I feel like it's a fighter that I'm not impressed with fighting another fighter that I'm not impressed with a not impressive finish. I give it a 3. I understand that some people would give it a higher score just because it's a finish, but I feel like the whole fight was just kind of like, Like, to me, I didn't really have a good time watching that fight. It was cool, I guess, but that's pretty much it. All right, so for the third fight on the card, we had Cannonier versus Derrick Brunson. I like Cannonier a lot, actually. I think he's always going in there to really try and win. I think he tries to go for the finish most of the time, too. In this fight in particular, well, I would say, actually, it's more or less Derrick Brunson's style to try and kind of grind out his opponents. In this fight, he tried to do that in the first round, which didn't really necessarily make for, I would say, entertaining fight. It was dominant, but not necessarily entertaining. It didn't get entertaining until the second round when Cannonier knocked him out. And that was actually very entertaining. Unfortunately, though, because that fight as a whole wasn't that entertaining, I'm going to give it about a 3. So that's just kind of that. All right, so for the co-main event, we had Derrick Lewis, the Black Beast, versus Toavasa. It was a good fight. So good that I actually have to change my scoring system. In my scoring system originally, it's not really made for 2-round fights to have a 5 score, but this is definitely a 2-round 5. Like, from the beginning of the fight, there was a lot of swinging and banging, a lot of punches being thrown, and you knew at some point in time somebody was going to go down. Derrick Lewis, unfortunately, was the one. You can't pick up a win in Texas for whatever reason. It's unfortunate because I like Derrick Lewis, but Toavasa, he won, did the shoey, went home. Got to give it a 5. It was a great fight. Can't forget about the main event. Israel Adesanya as the living embodiment of knowledge, Lau would say. But, you know, he fought in there, had a good fight against Robert Whitaker. They went in there, did their thing. It was a very technical fight. Way more competitive than the first fight, obviously. My opinion, I actually at first scored the fight for Robert Whitaker, but it was by no means a robbery. I thought Israel Adesanya fought a good fight. After, you know, talking with a few people, it's like how much can he really do when he's trying to avoid the takedown, and he's like known to be a stand-up fighter. Even in the fight, you could see that his takedown defense was pretty impeccable. You know, I mean, there was no takedown that really led to serious damage for Israel Adesanya. So for me personally, I give this fight a 4. I think for the hardcore MMA fans, they're gonna really enjoy it. I think for the general masses, it's gonna be okay, but I enjoyed the fight. And that's pretty much it for this card. It was a pretty solid card. You know, I would say, like, in my opinion, if you're just going in for the finishes, the card definitely looks a lot better. If you're watching the fights as a whole, it's kind of okay. Pretty much it gets about a 3.6 from me. Just in general, I thought, you know, it was cool, pretty solid, but not the best. But hopefully we'll have something better coming out of UFC 272 and some more fight nights in the future. We'll be back for those in the future, but as of right now, you've been highly advised, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.